You are now tuned in to StarCHaser Central, a podcast about Charles Hamilton music moments and everything in between. I'm Stick Braxton.
And I'm Mike D. Jackson, aka Mr. Moisturizer.
You know, eventually, eventually, you have to run out of these. That's what I think, but uh, um, one day I'm just gonna ask you to do one of your sexy commercials, to start the show. That's what I'm gonna do. You know what I'm gonna do? Before we even do the show, I'm just gonna throw on one of your commercials before we start the show, and that's gonna be the ad for the show.
Listen, I could do it. I could do like a live one. I mean, we'll figure it out, but I got you.
How you doing, bro?
As you can tell, very moisturized. How you feeling, man? Looking a
Yeah,
little
I'm not bad,
ashy.
man. You know, it's an early week. Early week. I just got back from home. My niece's birthday, my mom's like birthday party. Um, Played a basketball game, extremely hungover. Uh,
Ooh,
but yeah, I'm okay.
all right, man. I mean, like I said, we got the moisturizer, we got the water over here. You know what I mean? Just you gotta take care of yourself, man. Seriously.
Yeah, that's a fact. Today is and it's gonna be a different type of episode. Probably we're thinking for the month of March, but we'll see. But first off, we're going to review a shorter tape, and then after that, we are going to get into the contents of the March Madness bracket that we're doing for Charles Hamilton Best Tape. But let's get to that first. Let's get to that review first, and we are doing the 3-song tape. Shut up already.
Yes. A very interesting name for the tape. Shut up already. I'm not sure if you actually remember when this tape came out. I did some research. I was around at the time. It was like May of 2009. I did find a screenshot of Charles kind of like talking about why he dropped these 3 songs because it just seemed kind of random.
Hmm.
This is from his Twitter, and thank God that people have archived these things. So Charles said, "Everyone want to shut me up. Geez, I just want to enjoy music. So you three, calm down. Here you go." And there you have it. Basically, shut up already. I
Yeah.
want to say at this time, Charles was probably at the height of his drama in Interscope. So
Yeah.
a lot of people saying stuff, and he's like, "All right, listen, y'all. I'm trying to drop this project. I'm trying to drop this album. Until then, shut up. All right." So
Yeah. Very significant time in the Charles Hamilton timeline. This is definitely after. This is definitely after. At this point, he did the Dilla executive produce thing, right? 'Cause I think that was kind of like what kind of kickstarted it. Because we're before that. We're quote unquote before the album.
yeah, it's before the album
Yeah.
actually gets dropped. It's I want to say probably the Black Spade thing was going on around that
Yep.
time too. So it's just like everything just like piling up on each other, and it's just like, man, like Charles Hamilton in the news again. Charles Hamilton did this, did that, did this, did that, and it's like, man,
Yeah.
like it's looking pretty wild for your boy.
Yeah. So a very, like I said, very significant time. I remember this dropped. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be mad at new Charles Hammond music. It's very much shorter than what he had done at any time, right? You could tell how
Yeah,
random this is because one, it wasn't just one song, and two, it was a project, but it was only 3 songs. And up to that point, he had never done that. Not at this point in his career. So you could tell it was a spur of the moment type of thing. Um, but I remember listening to it, and I remember 2 out of 3. I was like, "Yeah, I like what he gave us." And now I'm ready for the album, which we'll get into based off of some of the songs when that was supposed to be. But how about you? How did you feel when you first heard these songs?
pretty much the same as you. It was one of those things where I was like, all right, 3 songs, like definitely not gonna call it an album.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, Charles would sometimes drop like a song or two somewhere, but it's like these
Mm-hmm.
3 songs, here you go. Like they're not going to be part of another project or maybe no, it's like just these 3 by themselves. Remember hearing them? I'm like, all right, cool. Just they're all right songs. this is, at the time of you can rap on other people's beats without having to worry about nothing. It's like, hey, this is what you do. You know what I mean? I want to say, because one of these songs I know we're going to get into, but it was definitely a good point in the shady aftermath Interscope,
Hmm.
you know what I mean, in that whole aura and that whole
Yeah.
ordeal. And Charles, I know with him, he's like, all right, well, we got 50, who's done amazing things. Obviously, Eminem,
Yeah.
Dr. Dre is coming back, not sure, because this is back when it's like, yeah, Detox is coming out
Hmm.
for real this time, guys. I think so, maybe. So it is pretty interesting. But I remember being like, oh, these are some cool songs, but really anticipating the album myself as well.
Hmm. Let's get into it. I think the track list on because it was on YouTube, but it was like in separated songs. But I think the order that they come in is actually the order of the album or the tape.
Okay.
So I think the tape opens with the album is perfect.
I don't remember that being first. I personally remember Cracker Blogger being first. We
Okay.
could go in any order just because I remember that was a big song like then, the original.
You know what? Let's start with that one. That
Okay.
I believe in starting with that one. So
I,
Cracker Blogger we'll start with.
I know why you're
Um,
saying that. I know
the
exactly why you're saying.
original is I believe Crack a Bottle, right?
Yes.
Uh that was that M? Was that did that feature 50?
It featured Eminem, Dr. Dre, and 50. 50 is like
Yeah,
near the
okay,
end of
yeah.
the song, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I hated that song.
Yeah, I'll say this. When the song first came out, I was like, all right, because I heard Eminem's part. I'm like, this sounds like a Eminem-esque song. When Eminem, for a bit of his career, first song was always something, had like a kind of silly type of vibe to it, something
Yeah.
like, that's just, hey, it's Eminem, that's his first song, whatever. If you like it, you don't like it, whatever. He
Mhm.
has more serious songs on the tape. And it was this big thing about, oh, Dr. Dre hasn't rapped in a while. Here's Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre was spitting some bars. It's like, all right, cool. And then people found out, oh, Eminem wrote that for him. And it's like, wait, how do y'all know? The reference track came out, and it was so funny because I don't know if you heard the reference track with Eminem like rapping like Dre. I hope it's on YouTube somewhere. Please, if I can find it, I'm gonna send it to you. But it was
Yeah.
Eminem rapping just like Dre, like in his hell yeah voice. And that song came out, and it's like, okay, well, my thing is this, didn't really like the original that much. 50 was on it. 50 was like, it was a song, but with the power of Eminem, they got a Grammy, and that was 50's only Grammy, if I remember.
That's
They got a
crazy.
Grammy for
That's
the song.
crazy to think about.
Nothing for Get Rich or Die Trying, nothing for Massacre. Crack a bottle, Grammy, won a Grammy.
Uh, how do you feel about Charles's rendition of the song Crack a Blogger?
Crack a blogger, rapper starting problems. Acting off the wall, I pass him on some taller goggles. Pass him off the marshal, got an arsenal, but not to drop a bomb on them off and try to talk to guys. But I sort of find the kind of time I offer is discarded, retarded. Let off raw inside an hour later. Now the flavor's kind of childish, ain't it? Taste it, face it. I gave my Rushmore a facelift. I keep the Hamilton administration enslaved in the basement in case they want to see.
Okay, so I want to say that he did remix the beat a little bit because he chopped it up a bit, made it sound a little bit better. And this is where I will say it's the gift and the curse of, when you're sampling somebody, like we said, not really a fan of the original. So sometimes you could, there's a saying about turning chicken shit into chicken salad, you know what I mean? Lemons into lemonade. In this song, I don't think you could really do it. Now, there's nothing wrong with how Charles was rapping and all that. His bars, they were fine, completely fine, passable. I enjoyed the raps, but the beat, it just reminded me of how much I don't like the beat, the original. And I was like, no fault to Charles of his own, but I really don't like the original. I thought I did when I was younger, but I'm like, man, this song was pretty garbage. But Charles's version, I'll give it a slight bit better, but overall I'm like, it's just not really for me. But it's mostly because of that beat. I'm like, you can't really do too much with that beat. The instrumentation and everything was completely fine, but just nah. Good bars though. Good bars.
Yeah, if we're talking about like, ooh, you got to pick one song to listen to, and you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna pick the Charles version, but it's like, I think you're right. We talk a lot about how you know, the sample helps a lot of can help lift the song, right? When it comes to Charles and the way he uses certain stuff. So, but it can also have a negative effect. So, like you said, we didn't really like that song. So that beat comes on, you're like, oh, that reminds me of how much I don't like this song, right? But you're like, oh, well, we'll still give Charles a chance. And you're listening. And I listen to this song more than either of the other songs because I'm good with the other two songs. I know how I'm gonna feel about those two, right? It was this one that I was
Yeah.
like, I remember this. And like, I didn't like it. So I listened to it more than the other two for this review. And I listened to him rap. I was like, he's rapping really well. And he's saying some cool stuff on here, but just not enough to lift it, you know? It's just not enough to get it above that point where I'm like, oh, I would put this somewhere. I would playlist this and I would listen to this more often. But I can't do it. How you feel about that intro? At this point, who is he? The girlfriend. He said the girlfriend's pregnant, but who was that at the time?
Man,
I
my
would
my thing
assume.
is
I would assume.
B.
Yeah.
Thought you would agree with the B in the way.
I gotta assume that's who we're talking about at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
I assumed it was Brianna because my thing was like I forgot he even said that until I heard this again.
yeah,
And in my head, I was like, that's a crazy way to be like, yo, we're expecting, you know what I mean? He's like, yo, no liquor in the house, but you know, we gonna be good. I'm like, okay, it's something to celebrate about. Cool, that's dope, you know. But
but
um,
when you really think about it, what a horrible foreshadow. You know,
yeah, you got a point.
it's a crazy foreshadow to like stuff that's about to happen anyway, which actually would lead to another 3 song tape later on down the line, which is crazy to think about. Um, yeah, man. Yeah, like I said, the song is just it's a tough it's not a tough listen. It's just I don't want to listen to this. I guess if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll say this. You know how a lot of people will talk about not now because I think Nas has learned his lesson, but you know, for years, people are like, "Yo, Nas is so great," but the beats he
Yeah,
picks are, you know, and it's rare for Charles to pick like a horrible beat unless he just wants to freestyle on something that's like whatever.
yeah,
I think for this, it was more of a situation of hey man, I'm trying to elevate, you know, because of course I'm on, you know, Interscope with M50,
yeah.
you know, Dre and all of them. So I'm doing a little shout out to them, of course, you know, shout out my label and bigging them up. And it's one of those things was like, hey man, like I don't think anybody could have really saved this beat. You know, listen, it's not Charles's fault. I'll say that it wasn't his fault, but
Right.
great bars. I like what he was saying on the song, but yeah, just the beat, nah.
So next is Isaiah 66. I know this is definitely the song in the middle. That I do remember. Isaiah 66. Uh, I will say this. You know how I used to say that there are some Charles bars that if you look through my Facebook, you would absolutely see me put it as a status or whatever.
Yeah,
Countless times, I used to put, "Truth is, I'm nicer than everyone." So I just decided I'll be nicer to everyone.
Truth is, I'm nicer than everyone. So I just decided I'll be nicer to everyone. My mind is the sight of the blind, minus the blindness. Don't try to deny it, I am the highest in this climate. My touch Midas, retire when, try again. The Hamilton language doesn't define what retirement. I am grin, so mean mug away. I get reciprocity the mean fucking way. I said fuck it, see what I say. Even when cussing, I mean what I say. Seeing that it takes a scene from a great screenplay to make people believe today.
I love that intro to the song, bro. I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you get out of had that exude that kind of like, you know what? I am nicer than everyone. So rather than gloat about it, I'm just going to be nicer to those around me because they can't even understand or fathom this type of level of greatness. You know what I mean? I gotta bring
definitely.
myself down to that level.
Definitely. And it's one of those things that's totally a bar where
Yeah.
anybody, if you didn't say Charles wrote that or spit that, whatever,
Yeah.
you could just say that out of nowhere. Someone's like, yo, who said that? Yo, who said that? You know?
Yeah.
And then of course what the hate Charles would get, you know, you'd be like, oh, that's Charles Hamilton. Oh man, I don't even like him because he did. But it's like, no, but you like the bar. You
Yeah.
like the
You've
bar.
already
Give him his
exposed
props.
yourself. Yeah.
Listen, like, just give him his props, man. Come on. Like the kid is nice, man.
How'd you feel about the song before I start do a glowing review about it?
So this is one of the songs that I think out of the three, I probably listened to technically the least back then because I
Mhm.
didn't remember. I'm like, what song was this? Heard the beat. I'm like, oh, this was a Rick Ross beat. I want to say it's like Magnificence, what John Legend or something.
Yeah.
But heard it. I'm like, number one, we just talked about Nas picking horrible beats. Rick Ross does the complete opposite, picks great beats that suit him in every way.
Yep.
So great beat instantly. So I'm like, okay, so there's no way Charles can mess this up, whatever. And he does it, does a great job, spits phenomenal, great bars, great. You know what I mean? Definitely a lot better than what we first heard with Crack a Blogger. So I was like, oh, this is good. Dope. I like it. So
Yeah. There's really this is a good rap because like it's not necessarily a song. It's really a long freestyle with like with an ending hook or like a bridge or type of thing. But
mhm.
all those verses in there are crazy. Like he's going nuts. You know, like I said, the beat is great. Like I said, Rick Ross is probably well, we can't say who the one of the best beat pickers is anymore because he's in hot water for stuff that he caught on to last year. So Rick Ross
Yeah.
now has to take that that title from now on. But yeah, Rick Ross has always picks great beats. This is a great beat for Charles going, very smooth, very kind of debonair type of vibe to it. You know what I mean? Yeah, just some of the stuff that he says in here. He says, learn what to watch when you're in a couple knots. Murder love the cops. Cops love justice, not just fussing. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a bunch of stuff in here that he says. You know how like Charles does that thing where he'll say a bar, but he'll like trail off and won't say it, and it's almost like he bleeps it. That kind of drives me nuts, by the way. Like, I think I know what you're gonna say, but I don't. And so now I'm just like I'm filling in the blank, or I just won't say anything. So now I'm doing the same shit you doing. Does that bother you sometimes? Or like it just like sometimes you'll listen to a song like, what the fuck was he going to say?
It depends because we all just found out about I guess a Who Kid tape that was supposed to come out that had some songs that none of us heard and some songs we have heard.
Mm-hmm.
It was what was it? Well, it's called the uncensored version is called Something to Say, but we're talking about a song for Mysteries where
Yeah.
there's certain parts that he would bleep out and whatnot. And part of me would be like, man, I wish he didn't bleep that out. I wish there was like a full version. And now there is, but when he does it himself, like when he bleeps himself out where he just doesn't say it, I'm like, I'll say this. If you're around at the time, it's fine because exactly what he was like referencing for the most
Yeah.
part. And I know he said in a couple bars, he's like, listen, I learned. Listen, I didn't say it.
Yeah.
You know exactly what he's going to say because the label, certain people, they're like, yo, don't, Charles, don't.
Yeah.
I didn't say it. It's like, we know you didn't say it, but come on, man. Like, we told you to stop referencing that. And, especially Charles at that point in time, he's like, listen, I didn't say it. Technically, I didn't do it. It's like, man, just keep yourself out of trouble, man. So if you were there at the time, it's kind of like, I know what he was talking about. I know exactly the reference. If you weren't, you're going to be like, well, I wonder what happened there.
Mhm.
What did and then if you hear him say something like that, like, oh, I didn't say it. It's like, well, what did he say? And
Yeah.
then you're gonna have to ask someone that was actually around at the time because if you ask Charles now, he might be like, I'd rather not bring that up. That was like almost 15 years ago, 14, 13 years ago. Let's just not dive back into that bad situation. So
Yeah, just stuff like, I do not trust, I'll watch, I trust my sight, Professor X meets Cyclops. This is a crazy. It's these type of tapes too where I'm glad that we can get to talk about this because it kind of gets overlooked because it's not like a super major tape. It's like I said, it's kind of short. So people might forget that this exists and it's good to bring this back up because it's a very good, you know, written freestyle, whatever you want to call it. This is just a good verse altogether.
yeah, it's a random drop. Like people will be like, oh well, it's literally three random songs that just got dropped together, and it's always Charles just trying to show his lyrical awareness, his prowess, all that. Where it's like, listen, that's what Charles has done in the beginning. I'm nice. I'm gonna keep telling y'all I'm nice. I don't care about the controversy y'all keep hearing about me. Let me prove to you how nice I am, and he does it on these songs as best as he can.
The tape actually finishes up with the album is perfect. Um, Obviously the album that is in question was his Interscope debut, which is supposed to be This Perfect Life. Um, and he kind of just details what's going on with the album at this point. He also said in Isaiah 66 that, which I was supposed to ask about what that is. I think that's a Bible verse, but I wonder what he was actually referring to in there. But we'll talk about that at some point later down the line, probably off camera.
Okay.
But yeah, so June 23rd was supposed to be the date, and that seems to be, he said it in this song, said it in Isaiah 66. June 23rd was supposed to be the date. What do you remember before we get into the song, just about that anticipation you had for that album? Because at this point, we're probably a year and a half, probably maybe close to 2 years of Charles Hampton fandom at this point. We've been telling all our friends. Our friends are like, we don't get it, and we're telling you this is the guy. How were you feeling at this point in time?
I would say still anxious, because of course he has all these tapes that he's dropped, and it's like, yeah, we got great tapes. At some point though, you still got to drop an album. And it's like, all right, well, what is this album going to sound like? Because we had so many tapes that sounded like this tape sounded like that tape, and it's like, all right, well, is it going to sound more like the Pink Lava Lamp? Is it going to be more like a crash landed outside looking type of tape? Is it going to be a little bit more serious? Like, what is it going to sound like? I just remember being kind of like, man, like, I really hope it comes out June 23rd. It doesn't get like pushed back or anything like that. And like you said, in the song, in some of these songs, he's kind of talking about like what the label's talking about. And my thing is like, man, I just kept trying to sit back and think, what would a Charles album sound like? So for me, I was just like, man, I just hope it delivers. I hope he's able to get it out on time. And depending on who he's going to be working with, like just, it was just it was so much that I was like, man, like so many questions. I'm like, I guess we'll just wait till June 23rd. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too was just, because we were young, so we didn't have an understanding of like the music business and like the industry at that point. So we didn't even think about Charles being such a huge sample person and how expensive that might have been. So we had to think, well, if we had the knowledge we had today going back, we probably could have told ourselves like, well, maybe he won't have such a high sample clearance budget, so it won't maybe not sound like something that we've heard before. And if we look back, I would say it didn't really sound like anything we had heard at the time up to that point. You know what I mean? Because labels want certain things from people. They're looking to get hits and stuff. So, and if you look at it, I could pick out hits, obviously from TPL, but as he alludes into the song, maybe the label just wasn't picking up on what he was trying to put down, right? But yeah, the album, one of the verses he says in this, he says,
I had a talk with the short white guy, and no, that doesn't mean that I snort white lines. Of course I tried to ask him how he been doing, but he was tight about the units that I've been moving. My album didn't drop yet, stupid. The label's still debating and saying they hate the music. Wait, excuse it. I mean, they say it's great music, but it may be too quick to make a move with the new shit. I'm well suited, but Mr. Mathers is infatuated with Kardashian, and 50's talking about, well, shooting. And DeAndre, well...
We were on a live recently, probably last week, and someone had asked about This Perfect Life, and Charles had mentioned that, of course, and the song says, Jimmy loved it, but the label hated it. So that seems to be where we are in this time, especially in this song. I like the song personally. I think he's rapping pretty well on here, and again, a lot of insight into the album. But what about you?
So I want to say back then, this song was probably the one I listened to the most, because if I remember, there was like a snippet of it that came out like before this little tape came out. I remember it was that part of him saying, talking to Jimmy, saying, "How's June 23rd sound?" And I kept hearing that for it's like a snippet for like 15 seconds or something. Then the song came out, and I love the song the most out of all of them. I like this the most. I remember this was a 50 Cent beat. It was when Rick Ross and 50 were beefing. It's funny that we bring these people up. Anyway, 50 and Rick Ross were beefing. This is when 50 had that song Tia Told Me.
Yeah,
that's where it said, "You won't believe what Tia told me," or what Jimmy told me. Charles said it. Charles sung his hook better than 50 sung his hook. You know what I mean? So Charles did a better job on 50's beat. I think. But Really good song. Just him giving the background of, hey, this is what Eminem's doing right now. This is what Dre's doing right now. 50's just beefing like usual, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And Charles is like, hey man, I'm making all this music, and the label is saying they feel this way or that way. And now that we've gone back and there's been so many years, I realize Charles has mentioned this a lot. If you think about it, whenever he originally first got signed and then they tried to put him out there, market him and whatnot, for the longest time, it seems like they never really liked his music. For the most part, Jimmy did, but it's like you could think about certain songs that came out 08, 09, maybe early 2007 when he was first getting signed, maybe, where
Mm-hmm.
there's like, oh, Charles will say something like, yeah, they want me to make more pop music or more mainstream music. They're not understanding what I'm doing. And in my head, I'm like, well, who signed him then? Because technically, like, it sounds like y'all have been like this for like the last like year and a half, where you haven't understood anything,
Mm-hmm.
but you had this bidding war for him. If I remember, it was like Interscope and like another one or two record labels that wanted to sign him, and then y'all signed him and for a lot of money, and
Mm-hmm.
then you didn't understand what he was going through or what he was about. So it's like, what did y'all see in him? Did you actually see something in him, or like was it, oh well, we don't want them to have him, so we're just going to sign him? You know what I mean? So it's like that's crazy. Other than that, great song. I like what he did with the song. It's just pretty interesting because with Charles kind of giving us that information, saying, "Hey, look, this is what's going on. I'm about to drop this album. We gonna figure this out." Also, he talked about, "Hey, I read the contract. What? I read it. I can read." He says that near the end. I'm like, man, this guy. Of course, him doing his smart ass, comments and whatnot. He's like, he said he read the contract, so hey, he knows what he's doing. So I want to say at least this song gave me like a bit of reassurance. Like, hey man, like he got signed for a reason. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just wait till June 23rd. Because around this time, I think it was, like I said, it was May. So I'm like, we're getting close to June. So let's just sit back and relax. We'll see what happens when it happens.
Yeah, like I think that's a good point you made too. It's like why would it felt like they didn't necessarily put him on ice, right? So they signed him, but they never really had a plan in place except for just keep doing exactly what you're doing. But it's like at that point, you're capitalizing. You need to capitalize off of the buzz that he's getting and all the stuff that he's been putting out. Because like he put out a lot of stuff in between that time.
Yeah.
So it's like what were you waiting for? Because it can't to me. I I think you're right when they say that they didn't understand it or they felt like they didn't have anything. But I'm calling bullshit because like there are a lot of songs in between that time that you could have pushed in a way. Like, I don't know. Again, I don't know how much. I know samples are expensive, but there are a few songs during that time period where you've been like, you know what? Let's just take this one song and let's see if we can push it out there. It would have did some stuff.
Here's my thing. Of course, samples are expensive. They're like, hey man, like you're eating up at our budget. We don't know if this is going to be a hit or not.
Hmm.
Of course, we could be like, oh, it's a hit, but we
Right.
know financially is it a hit? But you could do what the smart idea. Okay, hey, look, we can't clear this, or we're not going to clear this because we don't know how much money we're going to make or not make from this.
Hmm.
So we're going to take that sample out, recreate the beat, no sample, and then we'll go about it this way. Because if it sounds better, then it sounds better, and we'll be good.
Hmm.
Unless Charles is like, nah, I want it this way, and I'm not changing it. And then they're like, all right, well, that's just going to be a free download. That's just going to be a free song or free tape, or whatever you want to say. It's, I feel like there are certain ways they could have worked around it. Of course, they had Brooklyn Girls,
Hmm.
and there's certain other songs that could have been hits that ended up falling by the wayside and not being promoted, however. And it's just like, whoa, I don't know. We weren't there. We can't speak about it. But
Yeah.
part of me is just like, okay, y'all kept talking about you wanted more mainstream hits. Like how mainstream did you want Charles to get? You know what I mean? So I don't know if there's certain beats that they wanted him to jump on, and he was just like, nah, or certain things they wanted him to do, and he was like, maybe, and just it was a clash overall. Like I think that's the only thing we could leave it as. It was a clash where creative differences. Charles may have felt one way, label felt a different way, and just it just couldn't work out.
Yeah, you can kind of see it too, just based off of that ending verse where he's like, I be trying to kill, but they won't stop clowning. I feel surrounded, but I feel grounded. I feel like at this point, like the industry's starting to do that thing where it closed in on him, and you could kind of see where he's like, this is really getting annoying, this is getting on my nerves, and he's trying to maintain that he's trying to maintain the same personality he had as he came in, or the same level of fondness of just the music industry at all. But you could tell it's starting to weigh on him heavier as the time goes by. But yeah, like I said, I agree. I like the song too. It's really good. Again, another one where people may have forgotten that it actually exists. So I'm glad we're doing this to kind of bring it to the light. So let's just go ahead and give it our rating. Like I said, short tape, only 3 songs. What would you give it? Should we even give it a rating now that I think about it?
No,
We
I'm glad
should.
we're saying this one because look, if you were going to give it a rating, I was going to add a brand new rating, which was going to be called the no rating. And if you wanted like a little GIF or emoji of Sonic, it's the one where he's doing the finger,
Yeah.
just where it's just like it's just a thing of like I'll tell you guys check it out. I'm still going to tell you guys check it out, but I'm like
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like it's too short to give it a rating where it's like, hey, this tape got this rating, but it's higher than this one or it's lower than this one. And it's like, nah, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's fair to do something with that. So I'm still going to tell you guys check it out. We're not going to rate it, but I feel like still you guys check the songs out if you've never heard them. You know what I mean? There are some hidden gems. So if you never heard them, definitely check them out. Tape is called Shut Up Already. It's on YouTube, but you probably won't see it. It won't be like in a playlist. Someone needs to make it a playlist, but
Yeah.
it's
That's
3
fair.
songs. You'll see it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad I brought that up real quick, just because as soon as I said that, my mouth's like, we probably don't need to do it. But yeah, definitely go check those songs out. Um, Again, personal ones for me is Isaiah 66, and album is perfect. But let me know if you really like Cracker Blogger, and give me your reason. Not saying that it's a bad song, like you know what I'm saying, because for me, it's definitely not for me. That beat is never gonna get. I'm never getting past that. But let me know why you like the song, and if you like Crack the Bottle, let me know if you like that too, because that's also interesting. Um, but okay, cool. So now we're gonna get into what the fans helped. I can't stress this enough. The StarCHaser, you helped with this. So any complaints, you will have to look in the mirror and talk to yourselves. But we are doing the March Madness CH tape tournament, man. Um, we asked the StarChasers for their 4 favorite albums or tapes from Charles Hamilton. Comment away wherever you were, just let us know what it was, and we would take those into consideration. We would kind of tally up the votes of how many times they got voted, and we would make a tournament out of that. Well, you guys helped a lot. I will say that we did have a nice pool of choices. So thank you for that as well. And the bracket is here, man. Mike, how you feeling about this, man? You saw the pool of tapes. Did you feel like there were any surprises that made it or didn't make it?
I will say this. Um, I wouldn't say the tapes that made it, I'm surprised. Maybe what I am surprised by is that since we asked you guys, I'm gonna have full disclosure. The whole thing was we were hoping to make sure you guys gave us enough tapes, because if you guys didn't, me and Stick were going to like fill in certain spots and be like, all right, well, we'll pick this for you guys, we'll pick that for you guys, just to make sure it's well rounded. What I am surprised by is not the tapes that got picked, but basically the era of tapes that ended up getting picked, because we just asked you guys what tapes would you like to see in a bracket.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, most of these tapes, as I'm looking at them, most of them are from like the 08, 09, some maybe 2010, that era.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized when we started this podcast, with a lot of you guys, most of your favorite tapes are actually after the Interscope era. You know what I mean? And of course, in case you guys didn't know, we did exclude Pick Live Lamp. So Pick Live Lamp can't be on here. But a lot of these tapes that were chosen 08, 09, 2010 era. So I was expecting a couple more options that were going to be, 2012, 2013, a little bit later on, and not saying that no one didn't say those, but there's
Right.
only like a few that actually made it on there. So that's what I was surprised by.
Yeah, I think we had a conversation, just you and me messaging back and forth, that we think our fan base, a lot of the community that watch the show, we feel like kind of are post Interscope Charles Finders, like what do we say, like 2012 era is kind of where a lot of them seem like they picked up, and that's a lot of their favorite tapes come from that era. So I would agree with you that, looking at these, like, of course, I'm not upset because '08 is kind of like, that's where we started. That's kind of very nostalgic for us. That's kind of like my favorite era.
Yeah.
But it is shocking that there aren't like some of those tapes that maybe I haven't heard yet that aren't on here. Because I'm just kind of surprised at that point. Um, and then some of the ones that got some of the most votes, I'm not shocked too much about, but there are a couple where I'm like, wow, that one over that one. It's an interesting dichotomy of how these were chosen, and the ones that were chosen. I'm not mad at it though. I'm not upset at it. So do you want to go through the bracket, man?
So starting on the left side, so that's seed 1, correct?
Yep,
Hey,
number
remember,
one, number one
all right,
overall pick. Yes, sir.
number 1 overall pick, number 1. My brain is alive.
Five total votes on it. Again, Charles has said this is one of his best tapes. It makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not mad at it, and I understand why people would pick this one. So
Yeah.
this is one of the ones I'm not surprised by.
Yeah.
So number 1 seed, my brain is alive. Number 16, my heart.
Mhm.
Then we have number 9, at most I'm just. Number 8 seed, normalcy. Number 4, 10 things I hate about me. Number 13 seed, STH0, the death of Charles Hamilton. I'm surprised.
I'm glad this one made it.
Yeah, I'm surprised it made it, but I'm glad it did, because I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the representation that I want to see. That I don't
Yeah.
want people to be like, oh, you guys didn't want. I'm like, once again, like Stick said, you guys,
Yes.
you chose, because
Right.
if we would have chose it, not saying whatever. Listen, you guys chose it, so don't be mad. So
Yeah, I'm glad that one made it though. I agree.
yeah. Number 12 seed, Autumn Harvest, followed by the number 5th seed, Sonic the Hamilton. Now we're on the right side. And of course, you guys will post this, so you guys will see it as well.
Right.
2nd seed, Intervention. This next one, I'm surprised by this one. Number 15th seed, TWA Flight 801, Steve Smith and the Blazer.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm excited about that one. I'm excited about that one for sure.
I want to see how well it does. We'll see. Number 10, Atlantis and A. 7th seed, the L Word, and we're just talking about the original L Word.
Mhm.
3rd seed, well, isn't this awkward? Number 14th, a surprising one, every Charles Hamilton ex-girlfriend. I know the tape, but I'm like, I don't really hear too many people talk about that one.
That's a shocking one. That's a shocking one. I'm not gonna hold you.
Yeah, I like the tape, but I'm not sure how everyone else feels about it, but we'll see how it does. It's going against awkward. Hey man, you never
Yeah.
know. This,
Yeah.
this is why this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Number 11, one of my personal favorites, Substance Abuse. And then number 6 seed, it's Charles Hamilton.
So yeah, again, can't stress enough that these were the choices made by you guys. Now, 11 were automatic bids. We did have to pick 5 from a pool that was left because the rest had 1 vote each. So we had to make sure we had the representation thing we kind of helped with a little bit after we got the 11 automatic bids. But yeah, the plan is for us to put a poll out on Twitter and YouTube to kind of get your idea of which, because this is the first week of voting. So first round voting, we'll put the poll out. We want you guys to vote. Very important that you guys vote so we can continue this throughout the month of March. And by the time we get to the end of March, we'll have the GOAT tape by the end, man. But me and Mike want to go through the first round, kind of decide, what we think is going to happen, our predictions. So let's just go ahead and get that started. My brain is live versus my heart, man. I'm gonna be honest. I think this was kind of easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got to review My Heart at some point because that was supposed to be an album. And I feel like that's the album that Interscope actually wanted to do because it's very pop heavy.
Yeah, definitely.
It's yeah, very very pop heavy. But My Brain Is Alive is too classic.
Here's the, and of course, this is what happens with brackets. It's one of those things where I love my heart,
Yeah,
you know, but the tape and also my actual heart, you know, it's what we're drinking water and staying moisturized. But I love it. And then it's one of those things where it's like my brain's alive, my heart, it's like, man, y'all, you're gonna make me mad when you do stuff like that. Cause it's like, you know, I'm gonna have to pick my brain's alive. Cause one of those
right.
things where like, unless I'm just being biased, where it's like, no, I just love it so much. It's like, so listen, my brain's alive. Hey,
Which we don't know how people will vote. Some people may vote with quote unquote their hearts versus what they actually think is better. And listen, vote how you want to vote. We have had stupid presidents in this country based off of dumb decision making. So it's like, what else? That's democracy at this point. You feel me?
right. You guys vote exactly how you want to vote. Don't base your options on what we're picking, you know, because this is supposed to be for, you know, you guys voting, and then we're going to take your votes, and that's how we want to push it along.
Yeah.
So this is what just what we're thinking though. Like I remember just writing this down. I'm like, let me pick the realistic answers, not my answers.
Yeah.
So
this next one's kind of is a good matchup. 9C versus 8C at Most I'm Just versus Normalcy. We have an episode on Normalcy that has not been released yet. So this might they'll have to wait to hear that episode to understand my answer. I would go at Most I'm Just here.
right.
You know, I think it's a more Charles Hamilton tape than Normalcy is. And I think that it combines elements of what Charles's personality, Incubus, you know what I'm saying? It combines that very well with his rapping and stuff. And the beats are unique. The bars are unique on that tape. And I just think to me it feels more Charles Hamilton than Normalcy does.
And you got a point there because wasn't at most I'm just that was around the Hamiltonization process, or was that a little
It's
out of it?
it's definitely after. Um
But not too far though, right? It's not too
I don't
far out
think
of it.
so. I think it's because Hamilton Stage Press was 08. It definitely came out in 09 and probably it was before the album. Before we
Yeah,
get to
definitely
this three
before.
before we get to like Shut Up Already. So yeah, it's definitely in between that January to April probably section.
So I'll say this. My choice would have been Normalcy, and here's why.
Okay.
Of course, I'm not going to do any spoilers for our upcoming Normalcy, episode. But I think with Normalcy, there's a lot more people, regardless if you like it or dislike it or you feel indifferent about it.
Mhm.
I've heard more about Normalcy because, of course, Charles had that point where he left and then he came back, and it's like, all right, well, if you guys are wondering what happened with the whole Interscope deal, let me
Mhm.
explain right here. So I feel most people they'll say, hey, this is Normalcy. Yeah, Normalcy.
Mhm.
But at most, I'm just. I feel like I don't hear that many people talk about it. Like,
Mhm.
unless it's us, like the OG, Star
Yeah.
Chasers that like, oh yeah, you remember that? He had all the Incubus samples and all that, but it seemed like this is one at most I'm just is one of those tapes where just if you didn't listen to it or you just didn't know it existed, it flew under your radar, or you just flew over your head and you
Yeah.
just don't really know about it. So I'm picking Normalcy based off the merit alone of regardless of the content in the songs. It's
Mhm.
hey, Normalcy was bigger. So I think people are just going to pick it more because it's a more popular project. Maybe not, it might not be better to some
Mhm.
people. It might be better than others, but I think just because it's a more known project, I think that's why Normalcy would win out on that one.
I think that's probably since we started this pod has been the most requested tape to be reviewed since we started this pod.
Definitely.
We've seen it in comments, we've seen it on Twitter, we've seen it everywhere. That is the number one tape that people really want us to review. So don't worry, it is coming. So say be on the lookout. Um, this one is number 4 seed, 10 Things I Hate About Me, versus the 13 seed, Sonic the Hamilton Zero, The Death of Charles Hamilton. What's your take here, buddy?
So I'll say this. Not to spoil it, because this might be an upcoming episode that we didn't record yet,
Yeah.
that we might be recording
Mhm.
in the future.
Yep.
Maybe with a guest, maybe with not a guest. We'll see. But of course, when we were practicing, hey man, let's check out 10 things I hate about me because we might be recording that soon.
Mhm.
All right. I'm like, okay, I remember 10 things I hate about me. Dope. And then it's been a while since I heard SCH0, but I remember when it came out, I definitely was rocking with it because there were certain tapes around that time. I was like, this is okay. This is all right. I definitely remember STH0 where I was like, yo, I really dig this project.
Mhm.
I'll probably say this because of recent biasy, hearing 10 things, I gotta go with 10 things.
Yeah.
I gotta go with 10 things.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Not to say that, like I said, SCH0 is a great tape. I think I think for fans who may have fell off at a certain point, if you came back around this era, this is kind of what you were hoping to hear from Charles Hampton at this point, because that tape is full of heat. Like, tells a great story. It's definitely one of the better entries into the SDH saga in that series. But 10 things I hate about me, it's just tough to beat that one, man. It's too difficult. Um,
Yeah.
I smell upset here. Number 12, Autumn Harvest versus number 5, Sonic the Hamilton. I
Go
know
ahead.
Sonic
I'll
the
let
Hamilton's
you.
iconic, bro. I know it. I know it's very iconic. I really do. I really do. I think if we actually looked at if we took off our rose colored glasses, again, not to say we've reviewed Sonic the Hamilton, y'all know how I feel about it. But if we remove the rose colored glasses and we look at them side by side, Autumn Harvest I think is a better project.
I'm not going to say that you're wrong or you're right.
Right.
I'm going to say that's going to be a very uphill battle that Autumn Harvest is going to have to fight. I'm going to go with Sonic the Hamilton. I'm going with that one. Here's another thing. So in case it was the last Friday, I want to say Charles did a live, and he actually talked about Sonic the
Yeah.
Hamilton recording it, and he was talking about how he basically was going crazy. Of course, lyrically on the beats, making everything, but also saying if you guys know, of course, that whole tape was about him basically becoming Sonic for real, but also just with I think the extensive recording he was doing, just so much stuff going on in his life that he was like he said he legit was driving himself crazy to the point where if you heard certain things in the recordings and the sounds and the songs, it probably was there because he said he was so meticulous with trying to get everything in a certain sound a certain way. And it's like, man, and I don't know if that's maybe why it's held in the regard that it is. And shout out to Autumn Harvest, but I think Sonic the Hamilton, it's the original. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
man, of course you said take off the nostalgia glasses and all that, but it's like, I don't know, man. I gotta go with Sonic the Hamilton.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I just if that would yeah, that one's the biggest upset alert for me, I think. The one that has the potential to actually do it.
Right.
Number 2, Intervention versus TWA, number 15, TWA Flight 801 C. Smith and the Blazer. This is a spoiler alert. Intervention is probably my favorite non-this Pink Lava Lamp album. Like, Intervention is like right up there with me. That's probably one of my favorites, if not
Oh,
my
okay.
favorite.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? So even if I would have take the bias, out, I would still pick Intervention here. And I love Steve Smith and the Blazer. There's a lot of heat on Steve Smith and the Blazer, but I just think it's an uphill battle against Intervention.
Same here. Intervention. It's Intervention, and a lot of people they know a lot of songs from Intervention.
Yeah.
I don't know out of everyone that's a StarCHaser how many of y'all have actually checked out any of the TWAs. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's one of those things where like if you were around at the time when Charles was making some of these tapes, like even though it's not on here, but like TWA, Death in the Down, stuff like that. If you weren't listening to any of that type of stuff, or that wasn't your cup of tea, you're instantly going to pick Intervention. I already know that, So I'm gonna just say Intervention, but of course, I'll say this. It would be pretty interesting if this was the actual like
Yeah.
upset. I'm not saying that it would be, but it would be interesting if this actually ended up being the upset right here, where it's
Mm.
like, really, what? Or people would be like, oh man, like Intervention was cool, but hey, I like the newer Charles
Yeah.
music compared to the older Charles.
I do like seeing people when they like, oh yeah, I like TWA. See, I'm like, yo, word. 'Cause I get excited. I'm like, all right, yeah. I would like to talk about that because that's a really good tape. Um, number 10, Atlantis NA versus number 7, the L Word.
L word. I
Yeah.
think as L word, because we've seen a lot of people say L word, just like whether
Mhm.
it was just like, hey, can you guys do an episode on the L word, or
Yeah.
L word is one of my favorite projects, and then there's
Mhm.
so many other L words as well. There's like 4 or 5 of them, so
Yeah.
it's like L word. It's Atlantis and A, of course, we love it, but I think that L word, that once again hard to beat. It's like, man, L word is L word, classic original L word. It's the L word, man.
Yeah, I think L Word being like a complete project too, like a complete, it's like a kind of like a concept thing. I think that kind of helps in his favor too. Just even beyond the music part, because Atlantis A, we talked about how being it was like just a collection of songs, um, good songs, albeit, but there's nothing connecting them together per se. So, but with L Word, everything is connected, everything fits, everything from 1 to 10 is just it's perfect. So, yeah, I gotta go L Word here as well. Um, Interesting matchup here. Number 3, well, isn't this awkward versus 14, every Charles Hamilton's ex girlfriend. It's
So
it's it's interesting.
very, very interesting. Like everything you basically just said about L word, I feel the same way with awkward, but I
Uh-huh.
feel like just a little bit more because we all know, the first awkward. It's like, all right, well, he has his feelings about Rihanna and whatnot,
Mhm.
and this is what he wants to pursue,
Mhm.
and regardless if he makes it or not, it still was a complete project. He might have sounded crazy professing his love for a celebrity singer, but still, if you don't even look at it like that, you're just thinking, hey, this guy's yearning for love and trying to find the right one, and you think this is it. Hey, it's dope compared to, and also the messaging. Hey, in awkward, I'm trying to find love. This might be the love of my life. I'm going this way.
Mhm.
Compared to every Charles Hampton ex-girlfriend. Hey, these are all the past girls I dated, and this is how I felt about them and how our relationship worked out and how it didn't work out. So
Mhm.
both tapes go in two different directions, and depending if you want to hear about his ex-girlfriends and his previous encounters, you might be like, I don't know. But on every Charles Hamilton ex-girlfriend, I think that was a lot of Kanye samples from
Mhm.
which
That's 808 and Heartbreak.
there you go. Because with Kanye, he had so many people. Man, you went from graduation to 808s, and man, I don't like this. And it's funny now because obviously so many people love 808s now, but I
Mhm.
remember back then people were like, oh, what is he doing? He ruined his career. It's like, hey
Yeah.
man, that's why you gotta let the time pass and let things settle, man. Let the dust settle.
Yeah, that's a fact. I feel like I don't have to say it. I think Awkward's gonna win here. Um, yeah, Awkward's gonna win here. To me, I think that's where we're headed for that one.
Okay.
Finally, 11, substance abuse versus number 6, it's Charles Hamilton. Uh, I it's Charles Hamilton is such a iconic, like it has a lot of iconic records on there, and it's an iconic tape to a lot of Star Chasers. But if there was ever a tape that might be able to get it out of there, it could be substance abuse. 'Cause I feel like that's one of those tapes that people bring up a lot. Um, I can kind of in the same regard. It's Charles Hamilton is more about like the raps and like the iconic songs. So your Star Chasers, those songs. But I feel like as a full body of work, I feel like Substance Abuse has the body to be better than It's Charles Hamilton. So if I had to pick one, if I'm betting, I would pick It's Charles Hamilton. But I could see a world where Substance Abuse could make the upset.
So here's the problem with some of these, like when you're doing betting, you're doing gambling, anything like that.
Mhm.
because of course we talk about the mind and the heart and everything like that. With me, like you said, probably the smart bet would probably be it's Charles Hamilton. I'm gonna go out and bet with my heart, and I'm saying substance abuse because
Okay.
I actually recently listened to like some of substance abuse, and I feel like with that tape, because there's the motivational songs, there's
Mhm.
the dope songs, that just the having fun songs, that's definitely a tape. We talked about that. We gotta cover that one in the future
Yeah.
too. Um, it's also he gets deep, he gets personal, on substance abuse. So I'm like, man, I this is like the one where I'll say if I had money riding on this, I'm like, this is probably the one where I'm gonna screw everything up and I'll get everything else right except this.
Yeah.
And then I could have won like 50,000, 100,000. It's like, man, just bet for the one that's going to win. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I believe in this one. I believe in substance abuse. Taking over. So I'm gonna say substance abuse on that one.
All
I'm
right.
probably gonna kick myself for it, but I'm gonna say substance abuse.
All right. Yeah, but that's our prediction for the first round, man. But our thoughts don't matter. The most important thing for us to do here is to get you, the Star Chasers, to vote when we put out the polls. And when we put out the post, comment under it. Let us know what you think will win each first round matchup. Please don't fill out the whole bracket. That's not what I asked you to do. Fill out the first round.
So I'm gonna make sure you said it clear, but I'm gonna say it right after, and I'm gonna say it a little bit slower
Uh-huh.
just to make sure. Please fill out the first round. Fill out the first round only in the comments. When we put out a poll, we're just going to be doing the first round for that week.
Yep.
Right now, if you want to leave a comment or you vote on the poll, vote or comment on the first round. Real quick, side note. Sometimes I do this at work when I'm talking to members or whatever,
Uh,
and they're like, "Huh? What?" And I'll say, "I just said," and so apparently some people get offended by that because one of my old coworkers, he said, "Yo, don't slow talk me." I'm like, "Well, you didn't hear me, right? Then I'm speaking too fast or too low, so that's why I'm doing that. Well, don't
mm,
talk to me like a child. Don't act like one."
mhm.
So I apologize, y'all. That's not me trying to call y'all stupid, but if I'm talking too fast or too low, I'm going to repeat myself, and I want to make sure we are giving instructions clearly.
Mhm.
That's what it is.
Mike is right. I've always had a speaking fast problem and a speaking low problem. So Mike's like my translator essentially. So that's what it is. But we are excited, man. We want to do this for the full month of March. That's the hope. So participation is key. If we get enough participation, we will do the reviews week by week. We will still have a tape review every week, but we'll just kind of balance it out between the tape and the bracket until we get a champion. But don't forget that you can follow us on YouTube at StarCHaser Central. You can follow us on Twitter, StarCHaser Central, and on TikTok, nope, that's wrong. I've done this so many times. Why do I keep
It's
messing
it's,
it up?
it's tricky, man. Listen, I blame Twitter because they wouldn't let me, put the whole Star Chaser Central. Blame them for that.
Yeah, I'm blaming Elon. Star Chaser Central on TikTok, and we are Star CH Central on Twitter. You can also follow us on our individual pages. I'm at Stick Around 54 on Twitter and Instagram. That's STIK around 54. Mike, where can they find you, buddy?
On Instagram, the Mike Jackson, Mike Jackson. On Twitter, Mike D Jackson, Mike D Jackson, 1D, 2 E's. Make sure you guys also follow Charles Hampson on Twitter. Hit him up, Charles Hampson. His YouTube, where he does his lives pretty much every Friday, unless he says something. The talented Mr. Hamilton. Also check out the blog, because in case if he's not on either, he's probably blogging. Enter the Hamilton at blogspot.com. Well, enter the Hamilton.blogspot.com. There we go.
Y'all know what it
Let me
is.
say that one more time. No. Let me make sure I say it right. Right. You know what I mean? You know what? Yeah, I'm not gonna blame Charles for this, but you know how many blogs Charles has had?
He's had a lot.
Man, jeez. Because sometimes I still want to say charleshamilton.blogspot.com,
Yeah.
theonlyrose.blogspot.com. I'm like, nope, let me not. Anyway, so the like I said, the blog, Charles's blog, enterthehamilton.blogspot.com. There we go.
But yeah, this is gonna be an exciting month. You could also help us too. Next week will be the second round, so there will be eight tapes left. So we'll need kind of a shorter-ish tape to review. So if you have any suggestions for that, you can throw that our way. We will try to look them through, see if they kind of fit as far as like time balance wise. But either way, we will have a review for y'all next week. We will have the bracket results. And yeah, I'm excited to do this, man. This should be fun. March Madness is one of my favorite things. I play college basketball, so I've watched college basketball. This is like my favorite time of the year. So it's just fun to do, man. So I hope you guys are ready to participate and have fun with us, man. Mike, any last words before we get out of here?
Nah, drink water, stay moisturized. That's it. For real. And vote. First round only.
We appreciate you guys, man. We are logging out of the StarCHaser Central. We always encourage you to follow your dreams
and reach for the stars.
You won't believe what Jimmy told me. You won't believe what Jimmy told me. You